Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode of Empowered in Health. I am so glad you're here to join the conversation as always. When we kind of get online here and talk together, I usually talk about things like mental health, mindset, cultivating good habits in our days. How do we really take care of ourselves from the inside out? But today I'm going to kind of spin into something different. Long story short, I lost my 99-year-old grandfather on Monday. And for this week's episode, I've been thinking a lot about, do I just want to cover a topic that I typically do? Or do I want to, honor his life a little bit and talk a little bit about some of the things that I learned from him when it comes to everyday living? And so today I want to kind of dive into that, right? What have I learned or what did I learn through the time that I was able to spend with my grandpa? And what were the most profound things that I remember? And what are some key takeaways or lessons that I could potentially pass on to you when it comes to living life really well, right? So sometimes when I come into this space, right, or I think about recording a podcast, or I come on here and I do a video, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see me. If you're listening to me on Apple or Spotify or something like that, you won't necessarily see me, but sometimes I kind of get into my head a little bit before I record podcasts. And I say to myself, like, how can you show up the way you are right now, Aaron, right? Like, look at what you're wearing. Look at what your face looks like. Look at what your, what kind of mess you are, like, right? Look at the mess you are. And I can get really overwhelmed by that feeling sometimes. And I know there's a lot of other people in the online space, in entrepreneurship, other coaches I've worked alongside. Like, so many of us get so stuck, caught, scared, overwhelmed, and defeated when we think or overthink about showing up through the mess of it all, right? But here's what I want all of us to really think about, especially today. I want you to think about, again, and most importantly, and I know I've shared this a little bit before, just this idea of how powerful it is to show up in your humanness, right? I flew halfway across the country last night, came to be with my mom and my family, left my kids with my husband, Dave, who has been an incredible blessing and support during this time, right? Like, picked everything up, is taking care of the kids alongside so many of my friends back at home. And I'm so incredibly grateful, right, for all of their support. And again, as I'm sitting here recording this today, it feels like, how can I show up in this hard right now, right? How can I show up in this mess? Looking like the way I do, feeling like the way I do, whatever, like the label, quote unquote, that I want to put on myself right now in this moment. But again, like, being real and raw and honest in our humanness and talking about the hard in life, showing up very imperfectly in a world where things are so curated and so overly filtered and so perfect, those are the most relatable moments for all of us, right? It reminds us that life is not a perfect journey. There's hardship and adversity and loss. There are setbacks. There are things that are really freaking hard to navigate. And again, I'm just in this place today where I wanted to kind of just like bring that to the light a little bit, right? Like, get into the real and raw of our humanness. Talk about hardship. Talk about loss. Talk about being real and honest. And remembering, like, that it's absolutely okay. And quite honestly, it's important. It's important to really talk through these things. Give our best advice, give our best lessons, talk about what we're focusing on, right? Talk about what we're learning, talk about how, when we go through something like a loss, how it like jolts us into vividly remembering how short life is, right? And that's where my heart's at today, which is why I want to kind of talk a little bit about my grandfather and talk a little bit about some of the most profound things that I remember about him and that I've learned about him, and some of the things that I want to kind of pass on to you, right? So my grandpa turned 99 on December 28th, right? So just started his 100th year this year. And here we are, January 31st. And he passed away on Monday, right? So just about a month or so into 2024. And, our family has been thinking ahead to planning how do we want to celebrate his 100th year? How do we want to really shower him with memories and time together and things that are fun, right? So one of the things that my mom had decided she wanted to do was put together a 100th birthday party for him, right? We were going to do a 100th birthday party and just celebrate his 100th year of life. And one of the things that, if you don't know me, you will know now, our family has been Disney crazies for a very long time, right? Like definitely Disney nerds. We've loved Disney for forever. I've been coming to Disney since I was a kid. My kids come to Disney all the time, pretty much every year. And my parents have a place in Orlando. That's actually where I'm at right now. And, Disney has been a huge part of our life. And most of that comes from my grandfather and my grandmother. They loved Disney so much, right? Loved the Disney characters, loved Walt Disney and his story. We actually celebrated my grandfather's, I believe, 70th birthday. I can't remember right now. I'd have to ask my mom. We celebrated his 70th birthday at Disney World. And our goal was, or his goal or his dream was to celebrate again at 100 if he, lived to be that long. And that was our plan for this year, right? His party is actually scheduled for February 24th, which is, in a couple weeks here. And obviously things are shifting a little bit and changing with his passing. But it's something that, is still really important to our family. So we do plan to do a celebration of life and, tell great stories and give our testimonies and, really share in the love that we had for him and really in the love that he had for Disney, right? So we will be continuing to go along with kind of celebrating him just in a different capacity, right? Not celebrating his 100th year for his birthday, but more so celebrating his life, right? His legacy and how much that he taught us, right? So many of us have gone through loss in different ways, right? Whether that's loss of a loved one, loss of a friend, all other kinds of levels of loss throughout our lives. And I think, whenever you go through a loss, it's just so incredibly powerful and important to really dig into, okay, what are the lessons, right? What have I vividly been reminded of? And for me personally, every time I've gone through a really big loss in my life, I'm just vividly reminded of how fast life goes and how precious life is and how we really don't have time to waste, right? We really don't have time to sit around and overthink about recording a video or sharing our heart on a podcast or talking about our vision or taking forward steps towards our dreams because we just never know what's actually going to happen, right? We never know what the path for our life really is going to look like for ourselves, for our loved ones, etc. And so today I want to talk about the 9 profound things that I learned from my 99-year-old grandfather and hopefully just empower you a little bit to really think about and reflect into your own life about, what are things that you maybe want to work on this year, right? What are things that you want to continue to shift into? What do you want to be bolder in? What do you want to take a chance on? And I'm hoping that these lessons that he really taught me will help you a little bit too, right? Because as I'm processing his loss or this loss overall and his passing, I'm thinking again about what are the big things I want to carry with me that he instilled in his life and what are the things that I want to focus on, right, in 2024 and so far beyond that. So the first one, don't be afraid to speak your mind and be honest. My grandfather did that to a T, right? Whether you liked the feedback or not, he told you exactly how he felt. And, sometimes I think as we all can get into our heads, right, about feeling like we need to filter who we are, or we need to tailor our message in some way, or we need to get it perfect. And it's just not the way. It's not reality, right? The imperfect is where we relate and grow and learn the most. And so if I can empower you with one thing that I learned from him, it's to don't be afraid to speak your mind, right? Don't be afraid to be honest. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable in saying exactly how you feel and talk about exactly who you are. That's number 1. Number 2, he always said this, and I remember this vividly as a kid. Study, 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 right? Like the importance of learning and growing and really paying attention to just how you can grow as a human and do new things inside your mind. He used to always play little games with us because he was a professor for so long. And he used to put us in school when we were little kids, right? And like give us little assignments and give us little math problems and give us little things to figure out. And he had these huge desks in his house that we used to play, school on and pretend to be a professor too. And again, I just remember him so vividly helping us understand the importance of growing in our brains, right? And studying new things even when they're hard, and trying new things even when they're hard. And so again, another thing to think about for this year and far beyond that, don't be afraid to study new things. Don't be afraid to really dig into something new, right? Okay, number 3, to save and invest. And this is a big one that I'm always kind of thinking about, right? As a mom of 4, my husband and I are constantly thinking through, like, how are we saving for our future? How are we investing in our kids? How are we investing in our overall lifestyle, right? How are we investing in our health? How are we taking care of ourselves? How are we taking care of our future, right? All those things. So saving and investing, huge. And really thinking through, like, the lifestyle that you're leading right now with everything that you are currently utilizing or going through in your day-to-day life, are those things you really need, right? How can you essentially make shifts and adjustments to make sure that you're really paying attention to what you might need in the future too, right? So he was always someone who was really big on, obviously providing for yourself in the moment, but really making sure that you're providing for yourself in the future too, and being smart about your investments and being smart about how you're taking care of yourself and your family, right? And your future. So something to think about, and something that I'm always thinking about too. I'm not the best at budgeting. I am not the best at saving really intentionally and really well. And so this is something that I want to make sure that, I keep working on with Dave, but I also keep working on learning more about in my own life, because I know it's my responsibility. And sometimes I kind of get into this mindset of, well, I'm not gifted in thinking about that, or I'm not really well versed in understanding that, so I'm not going to take responsibility for it. I'm just going to let my husband do that. For me, I know that I need to get more active in making that shift to just understand the importance of saving, investing, and how are the best ways to do that, and what are we doing for our family. And so I want to encourage you to do that too, right? Make sure that you're, really in communication and connection about what you're doing now for your lifestyle, but what you're doing for your future, right? And for your future family and all that kind of stuff. Number 4, be curious and challenge yourself. And this kind of goes back to the study component. But my grandpa always instilled this level of curiosity in us, right? Like, he always wanted to make sure that we were staying challenged. And so again, kind of back to my story about when we were kids and he was playing school and professor and all of that, he always made sure that we were really challenging ourselves. And I remember feeling uncomfortable and feeling like, I don't want to do this, or this is too hard. And I'm just grateful for little lessons that I learned like that along the way throughout my childhood and really throughout my whole life, because it's taught me that I can do hard things. And even if it's not perfect or I don't get it right, it doesn't matter. There's still growth and learning in it along the way, right? So number 4, make sure you're staying curious and make sure that you're challenging yourself. Number 5 is hard work pays off. My grandpa worked for most of his life, right? Like I said, he was a law professor for a very, very, very long time. And he worked clear into his 80s. And he really worked because he loved it so much. And he really worked because he knew and loved that hard work paid off, right? He loved challenging other people. He loved being creative with other people, right? And having like really critical thinking conversations. And he really taught us the importance of working hard, and how when you're working hard and you're focusing in on something that you love, and you're continually challenged by it, and you're continually trying new things, that it will pay off, right? That it will be worth it. And so I want to just empower all of us to remember that, right? When you're working hard at something and you're passionate about it, it's worth it, right? The hard work does pay off. Okay, number 6, being generous with your time and your means. My grandpa was an incredibly generous man. He's been taking care of our family for a very long time. And he's been showering my personal family and my children, his great grandchildren, right? With just so much love and investments in their future and so many other things. And to see that kind of selflessness and generosity in a grandparent is so beautiful, right? And it just reminds you how important it is to be generous, right? Care about other people, invest in other people, invest your time in other people, get to know someone else. Utilize what means you have to invest in your family, those kinds of things. It's just really something that I can't even begin to express how appreciative I am of. And again, it's such a blessing to learn about generosity firsthand, right? From people like a grandparent who have gone through so many different life experiences than you have. It's such a gift, right? Okay, what are we at? I'm on number 8. So I think I missed one. I think I said 6, 7, 8. So here's number 8, staying grounded in faith. My grandpa was an incredibly faithful man. And, said so many prayers every night and, looked to God for so much guidance. And staying grounded in faith is something that I have carried through, learning a lot from my parents, from their parents, and from my grandfather, right? And other people in my life. And so staying grounded in faith and believing in the grander plan is something that I will always hold close to my chest, right? Okay, number 8, love your family well. Love your family well. And this kind of goes back to the other points that I've made, but just like being generous with time and means, like my grandfather loved his family so well. He always wanted us to be taken care of. He always wanted to make sure that, we had what we needed, right? Before he ever kind of poured into himself or took care of himself. And he loved doing that. Like it was something that he really wanted to do in his life and for his family to have, right? Just loving his family well. And that's something that I'm going to be, again, holding close to my chest, because loving my family well is a daily goal of mine and a massive priority. It's such a big piece to my entire life, my entire well-being, right? The reason I take care of myself, the reason that I work so hard to be mindful of my health and to be proactive and to try to make sure that I'm doing everything that I can to stay in this headspace of remembering that pouring into me means the ability to pour into my family and to love my family well, right? And then number 9, don't forget to have fun. As I kind of shared, our family's major Disney people, right? We are Disneyers. We've loved Disney from day one. And my grandpa was a huge part of that, right? Teaching us about the importance of having fun, right? Don't take life too seriously, right? Challenge yourself and study and work hard, but don't take life too seriously because it goes really fast. And that's something that I learned really quickly through this loss. I've experienced a lot of different losses in my life, and I haven't shared a lot of them. Maybe one day I'll share more. But I started experiencing profound loss at a very young age, right? Profound losses, mostly with people under the age of 25, right? I started my journey with loss, profound loss, with friends, right? Really close young friends, kids that I coached, and have had to navigate understanding and managing loss through that lens. On the flip side of that, I have had my grandparents in my life for most of my life, right? I'm 41 years old. And, before my grandpa passed this week, I still had 3 grandparents in my life. I still have 2 grandparents in my life. And my mom's mom, my grandma, passed away. I don't even know, 10 years ago now? I don't know. It's been a long time. Or it feels like a long time. Maybe not 10 years. I'd have to think about that. My mind's kind of all over the place. But here's what I want. Like, here's the message, right? 9 things that I've learned from my 99-year-old grandpa. Don't be afraid to speak your mind. Study, save and invest. Be curious and challenge yourself. Hard work pays off. Be generous with your time and your means. Stay grounded in faith. Love your family well. And don't forget to have fun. And again, like when you go through loss and you have things like this happen in your life, you just like kind of get into this headspace of remembering, oh yeah, our time is finite. Our time is finite. And it is a blessing. Every single minute of every day is a blessing. That doesn't mean it's easy. That doesn't mean it's brainless to figure out. That doesn't mean that we don't have a lot of adversity and pain and hardship. That doesn't mean that there's going to be this perfect road to growth. It literally just means that we have to be vividly reminded that time doesn't last forever. It doesn't last forever. And when we go through things like hardship, adversity, loss, like taking a moment to really think about, am I living the best way I can, right? Am I doing what I really want to do that fills my heart and soul, right? Am I being as great as I want to be? Or are there things I want to do differently? Are there things I want to change? Are there things I want to let go of? You know, what does that process look like? What do we need to potentially evaluate, right? You know, I'm obviously taking this time to be with my family and to support my mom and to support my parents the best way I know how. But at the end of the day, you know, loss is this, again, profound reminder of, oh yeah, this doesn't last forever. And so my prayer through sharing these 9 things, sorry I got mixed up on the counting. I was thinking I had 10 things and then I'm looking at my list and I remembered I only had 9. So I apologize on the counting. But as I share these 9 things, like I just pray that they offer you some level of encouragement, some level of a reminder that every day is a blessing, some level of empowering you to remember that you are in the driver's seat of your life, of your health, of your family time, of your job time, of how you want to intentionally live, whatever that looks like you're in the driver's seat. We all are. And I think sometimes we can forget that. I also want to be someone who is reminding us that this thing called life is super imperfect. So if it takes someone like me, a 41-year-old mom of 4, showing up in all my mess to remind you of the imperfection, then I will do that. Because I think it is the most powerful and relatable thing that we can do as humans. Like reminding us and each other to show up in the imperfection and say, oh yeah, this is hard. Oh yeah, loss is hard. Oh yeah, we're all imperfect. We all have things that we're working through. We all have hardship. We all have adversity. And we all are just doing the best we can, right? So at any rate, I really pray that this message serves you in some way today. I hope that you take away something that will lift your spirits and kind of soften your heart and remind you again of this precious gift we have called life. You know, my grandfather was a wonderful man, and I'm so incredibly grateful that I had as much time as I had with him, right? Of all of my grandparents, he was maybe the one that we were able to spend the most time with, especially my kids, just because of where we have lived. Once we moved to Utah, we were not able to see him quite as much, but I'm, again, so incredibly grateful for the time that we've had. And I'm so incredibly grateful for the opportunity to share his legacy and to talk about him and to just empower all of us to remember the importance of time and remembering that time is not forever, and remembering that above all else, like it's just so incredibly important to stay in the now and to tell the people that we love how much we love them, right? If I could end with anything today, it would be to pause and tell the people that you love how much you love them.